Yeah, Gauri Puja, you can start, ma.
Yes, sir. A wonderful morning to one and all present here. I warmly welcome you all on behalf of JPR Institute of Technology and Design Thinking Club to the Future Tech webinar session on Design the Thinking, Preparing the Mindset for Disruption. Our Design Thinking Club is actively conducting many events which is supported by School of Design Thinking. Our design thinkers are excel in various fields in our college. Feedback forms will be posted in the live chat at the end of the session. Participants are requested to fill those forms. Question and answer session will be held at the end. So I request the participants to post your questions in the chat box. For any queries, contact our organizing team. I repeat again, feedback forms will be posted in the live chat at the end of the session. Participants are requested to fill those forms. Question and answer session will be held at the end. So I request the participants to post your questions in the chat box. For any queries, contact our organizing team. I heartily thank our beloved director, Dr. N. Murray Wilson, for supporting us, and I thank our beloved principal, Dr. L. M. Merling Livingston, for encouraging us to organize the webinar session. I warmly welcome our honorable chief guest on behalf of JPR Institute of Technology and the Design Thinking Club, Mr. Ramakrishnan V, Design Thinking Coach, School of Design Thinking, Intellect Design Arena. Mr. Ramakrishnan V has done various roles in his career spanning more than 25 years. He is the vice president at Intellect Design Arena. Additionally, he also performs the role of a faculty at School of Design Thinking, wherein he not only develops content but also coaches faculties and students on shifting their self-image to be contextual to current situation. Welcome, sir. Now I request Mr. Ramakrishnan V to take over the session. Please, sir.
Thank you, Gauri Puja. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Very good morning to one and all, and it's definitely a privilege and an honor for me to be part of this webinar, and School of Design Thinking and JPR Institute of Technology have a very long association, and JPR Institute of Technology has been a pioneer in implementing the concepts of design thinking principles, and of course also for starting the Design Thinking Club. Now, to begin with, we started design thinking as a problem solving approach way back in 2008. Have we always been successful? Definitely no. We did have our challenges. We did make mistakes. We did face a lot of failures, but we did realize that this is the way forward for the changing dynamic world. And this is one of the reason, the design thinking was one of the reason wherein we had to demerge our company. We were first Polaris Software, and then Polaris as a company was split into two, because Polaris was a services company. Our board, our chairman felt that services industry is not going to be surviving for a long time because the cycle time is far higher and bigger. So that's the reason the company was split into two between services and products. The services continued to be called Polaris, and which was subsequently sold off to Virtusa. And the product company was called Intellect Design Arena. We are around, say, 6 years old now. We consider ourselves a startup. And we mainly specialize in financial technology products. We develop products for banks, financial services companies, and insurance companies all over the world by applying concepts of design thinking principles. We do have a design center which is spread over 35,000 square feet. And of course, once the situation comes back to normal, when I say normal, when we can come out and visit places, I request all of you to come and visit our design center. I will definitely love to host you all in our design center. The design center is the way we tell people what goes into making products by applying concepts of design thinking principles. Design thinking per se is a very uh, abstract concept. It's more less tangible rather. And the design center helps communicate to our own employees, to customers, to prospects, and to the public at large. We also host a lot of NGOs, entrepreneurs, government officials to conduct a lot of design thinking workshops. Now, starting off for the session proper, let me start off with a real time incident that happened in Nepal a few years ago. Nepal, we all know, is our neighboring country. Unfortunately, right now our relationship with them is not so good. Though historically we have been very good neighbors. Um, they are relatively a poor country, and there are a lot of rural areas, and it was found that newborn children were dying quickly, and there was no way that problem could have been solved for those, particularly those kids which are born in villages. And the only solution people thought was having incubators. Now, in spite of having incubators, the problem was not getting solved. So a set of management students from Stanford came down to Nepal to find out what exactly the problem is. Now, they put forth some facts. The facts were the hospitals did have incubators. The incubators were either old or they were rusted. And the second fact was they were hardly used. So these were the facts that were put forth uh, by the management students. And third was the children were dying, the newborn infants were dying, in villages itself. When the parents started from the village, at that time itself the kids used to die. So there was no way that with lower infrastructure in Nepal they could actually commute to the hospital. So these were stark facts that these MBA students put forth. But there were a lot of insights as well when they went to deep observation. What did they observe? There was hardly any good infrastructure. There was no electricity. The villagers were illiterate, and they had hardly any knowledge about what was actually happening in the rest of the world. So they actually had to shift their thinking by applying design thinking concepts. They said these villagers did not need an incubator. The villagers needed a contrivance wherein they can keep the child warm. So this shift in thinking created a new product called Embrace. And this Embrace was a very, very simple, uh, you know, uh, a sleeping bag actually. And that sleeping bag was actually made up of no electrical components. It did not require any user manual. It did not require any moving parts. It was just a simple sleeping bag. You just had to pour hot water in it and wrap the kid around it, and it will keep the kid warm, and then it will keep the kid in a proper condition until you took the kid to the hospital. Now, why am I saying this example? This is a very popular example. This is a very powerful example as well. Now, why I'm saying this? There are certain hygiene factors with respect to design thinking. They are listening. You have to listen a lot with respect to design thinking. Now, what do I mean by design thinking? When I am listening to somebody, that means that only me and the other person are there. The rest of the world is not there. They are dead. I have to listen to that person in such a way. When I listen to that person, I don't just listen to what the other person is saying. I have to listen to what the other person is not saying. I have to listen to the body language of the individual. I have to listen to the pauses between every word or every sentence. So listening is a very, very, very powerful tool to understand the unstated requirements of a particular stakeholder. Normally what happens is, even I'm culprit of the same thing. When I listen to my son, when he talks and when I listen, already there are a lot of processors happening in my mind, and then I jump to giving my response, which is absolutely incorrect. I'm making a grave mistake, particularly as a design thinker, particularly as a parent. Design thinking, that's why it's not, I mean, sorry, listening, that's why is not a soft skill. Listening is actually a hard skill to practice. So listening is a very, very critical component. And of course, you all know what's the difference between listening and hearing. Just by having ears and that faculty up and running, you can hear, but you need to be far more insightful when you actually listen. The second is dialogue. Dialogue is not just two or three people conversing. Dialogue is not what happens in many of the English news channels. Dialogue is all about what is right. Dialogue is not about who is right. When you know what is right, irrespective of the other person's opinion, you will actually arrive at a correct problem statement. You will arrive at a correct solution. That is very, very critical. And the third, keen observation. How should you observe? Without any prejudice, without any preconceived notion, without any bias. Of course, listening, dialogue, observation, all superimpose amongst each other. But still, whenever you go and interview a particular stakeholder, when you observe a particular stakeholder, okay, that person is facing this problem. It could be your student, it could be your peer, it could be a faculty, it could be a person on the road for whom you're trying to arrive at a solution. Keenly observe, listen to what that person is saying, have a dialogue. Do not interrupt with your opinions or judgment. That is very, very critical. You take any design thinking tool for that matter. It could be a persona, it could be a a visualization exercise, or it could be a journey mapping exercise. These things are inherently fundamental with respect to any design thinking tool. If you are not practicing this, then it will be just like a formula of a plus b whole square. So ultimately, what is design? Design is a process. One second, sorry. Yeah. Design is a process of working to develop a solution in a conscious and innovative way, in which both functional and aesthetic requirements are included based upon the user needs. Now, I would like to underline three words here. One is functional requirement. The other is the aesthetic requirement. And third requirement is based on user needs. That needs to be underlined in red. Normally, what happens is we fall in love with our solution. I like my solution. I like my answer. I like what I'm developing. Let me go and thrust it on somebody. But does the other person actually need it? The way I see it, the classic example is the farmers in our country. Just because the farmers are committing suicide doesn't mean that the farmers are wanting the loans to be waived off, but still farmers are committing suicide. Is that the user need? Did anybody ask them what you actually want? So understanding the inherent needs of a particular stakeholder is very, very critical, and we should fall in love with our stakeholder but not fall in love with our solution. A couple of examples with respect to a good design. This is a product design. This is a simple safety pin. This was patented in 1849, more than 150, 170 years back. Believe me, this particular design has not changed since that time. Of course, what has probably happened is little glamour to it. It has become big, small, some plastic cap has been added. It comes in various metals, but the soul of the design, the heart of the design has not got changed at all. It has still remained the same for years and years and years. That is the brilliance of this particular design. So this is a classic example of a product design. I'll give you an example of a service design. All of you must have seen this. There are a lot of TED videos available. There are a lot of videos rather available in TED.com and YouTube as well. In case you have not seen, I will recommend you to go and have a look at it. Just search for Mumbai Dabbawalas. The classic thing about these people is that most of them are near illiterates, but they cater to what the customer wants. They have shifted the complete problem statement. They don't deliver lunch boxes. So ultimately, that's what they do. What happens is they ensure that their customer gets home cooked food on time. With that premise, they are able to beat even Six Sigma. That is the beauty of their design process. So we saw one example of a service, one example of a product. So ultimately what happens is a good design changes the entire behavior of a customer for the good, for the better. So unless you come up with something and change the behavior, when you say you change the behavior, doesn't mean you voluntarily, forcefully change the behavior. The customer buys into it. That is very, very important when a good design happens. So what are the elements of a great design? It has to be simple. It has to give a great experience. It has to be frictionless. It has to be efficient. It has to reduce complexity. And above all, it has to question assumptions. Friends, how many times have we actually questioned assumptions? We always succumb to what somebody else has done. We always follow what somebody else has done. Maybe that is right, maybe that is not right, maybe it is still contextual, maybe it is not still contextual. But do we question the status quo? Do we question assumptions? I'll give you a simple example here. Take example of a restaurant. A restaurant has menus. Of course, you all know, you go to a restaurant, ask for a menu. But why should restaurant have menu? Instead of a chef preparing a dish, the chef can say, I have these ingredients. Tell me what do you want me to prepare and give it to you. Isn't that possible? Why do we always succumb to what is actually available in the hotel, in the restaurant, rather than me deciding what I want to be prepared, hot, steaming, tasty, I want to eat? We can question that assumption. Second assumption, a restaurant serves food. Why should a restaurant serve food? A restaurant is a place which has got a very good interior. People can get their own food and enjoy as a picnic. Some people go to a park, some people go to a resort, some people go to a hilly area. Some people can go to a restaurant also. Let us question that assumption. A third assumption, a restaurant charges for the food they serve. Today I go, the menu is shown to me, I order for the food, and based upon the number of food or anything extra, I end up paying for the food. But why? Can I question that assumption? Of course. The select food is free. The customers are charged for the time spent on a restaurant. Isn't that possible, my friends? You start questioning assumptions. That is very, very critical and important. Let me give you a couple of more examples. Why should any educational institution have a playground of its own, have a hostel of its own, have a lab of its own? Why should student only answer questions in an assessment? Why can't students write the questions? Now, I'll tell you from where I'm coming to this particular assessment. I was conducting a particular workshop for a big college, and I said at the end of the sessions, there will be an online assessment. So one student asked me, can you tell me what kind of questions come? I said, no, it's not possible. So whatever we have been discussing, the questions will be based on that. Now, can you give me some sample questions? So I flipped it and told him, you give me 20 questions based upon what we have discussed till now. Just give me 20 questions. And then if the questions are good, genuine, interesting, you don't have to take up the assessment. I'll ensure that you pass. The student said, no, anyway, I'll take up the assessment. So that is very, very important. Start questioning the assumptions. The third probably is, why should campus interview always happens at the end of the fourth year or during the third year? Or why should it happen during college? Why can't a campus interview happen when a student is in the 12th standard? Well, of course, I don't mean that the campus interview, once it happens, the student goes to work immediately after 12th. The student can be sponsored by the company until the education is done. And then, subsequently the student can join. That way the comfort for the student will be there, that a job is available, and the company also will be happy to sponsor a particular student, and then there will be a great bonding culturally, both will be together. So this kind of questioning of assumptions is very, very important, particularly in the current times today. How many of us thought that we are going to face online teaching, online learning? How many of us thought that we are going to work from home? How many of us thought that not going to a mall or not going to a restaurant was okay? So let us start questioning assumptions. These are very, very critical and important. I'll give you one design thinking definition here. This is our definition, a school of design thinking's definition. There are requirements. There is a stated requirement. There is an unstated requirement. Just a moment, please. Stated requirement, everybody knows. Somebody says, well, I want all these things. He or she rattles out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That becomes a stated requirement. And there is an unstated requirement. Now, what's the unstated requirement? It's a requirement for the stakeholder, but he doesn't state it. He doesn't say it. Why? Does the stakeholder do it deliberately? Definitely not. The stakeholder is not saying that because the stakeholder himself or herself does not know that it is a requirement. How many of us knew that a search engine is a requirement for us, but no sooner it was given, we grabbed it with both the hands? How many of us knew Ola or Uber was a requirement? We wanted to go from one place to the other place, but did we know that by clicking on a particular button, the cab will come and start right in front of us? That was an unstated requirement. It's called a blind spot. I do not know that I do not know. But just because it's unstated doesn't mean that I cannot unearth it. I cannot understand it. I can definitely understand it. That is by patterns and anti-patterns. The difference between patterns and anti-patterns is what works and what doesn't work. So you'll have to observe the pattern over a period of time. So as a fintech company, we observe patterns of the banking industry, of government policies, of the new generation of people who are coming into the banking system, of the lower strata, economic strata of the people who are coming into the banking system, what's happening technologically, what is becoming obsolete. All those things form into patterns and anti-patterns. And then you'll have to connect the dot within the box and outside the box. The difference between within the box and outside the box is, for example, if you are going to connect with a related domain or related industry, then it becomes within the box. If you are going to connect it outside of it, totally unrelated, then it becomes outside the box. I'll give you an example subsequently. So this is a holistic example of creating a good design. And this is not like you will do everything individually and then ignore it. It's a holistic thing. It's iterative as well. There are two images here. One is, of course, it's written in Tamil. Arvind Eye Care, Arvind Kan Maruthuvamanai. Arvind Eye Care was started by Dr. Govindappa Venkataswamy, and their mission is to eradicate curable blindness. Any guesses as to who their role model is? Their role model is not another eye hospital or another general hospital. Their role model is McDonald's. So Dr. V, Dr. Govindappa Venkataswamy was in short called Dr. V. Dr. V thought that if McDonald's can give the same experience to people all over the world, why can't I give? So that's why they started reaching out to people for eye surgery. If a particular person was not able to pay, it was okay for Dr. V. If a person was paying, that's also okay for Dr. V. In spite of making majority of the operations absolutely free, still they are making profit. Just because I am paying doesn't mean I get extra eye care. The eye care, whether I pay the money or I do not pay the money, is absolutely the same. The only thing probably is I might get a AC room, I might get a slightly, extra food, but doesn't mean that eye care is different. The eye care is absolutely the same. And the number of operations done by a doctor in Arvind Eye Care is 10 or 12 times more than an average, both in India or abroad. And the success rate of the operations in Arvind Eye Care is 99% or more than 99%, in spite of 12 times the operations. Whereas in other hospitals in both India abroad, it's around 95, 96. That is the power of connecting outside the box. If Dr. V had not connected it to McDonald's, probably it would have been just another eye care hospital, or Arvind Eye Care might not be existent today. So in case as an individual, you want to, find your 2.0 version, or as an organization, you want to find your 2.0 version, see whom you want to idolize as, whom you want to have a role model as. That is very, very critical. The second example, some kids are playing in a park. This is a recent photograph of kids playing in Italy. We all know the number of positive cases, the COVID positive cases that happened in Italy. There was a classic blind spot, particularly for the government. Because the cases were rising, the government said the schools are closed, the offices will be closed. But what they did not know, was that just because it was a holiday, everybody will flock to a park and then have fun over there. This resulted in a lot more number of cases, positive cases, and unfortunately some percentage of them resulted in death as well. So unearthing the blind spot is very, very important. How will you unearth the blind spots? Let me go back a bit. By observing patterns and anti-patterns, what works and what doesn't work. So that is very, very critical. So this was an example of connecting outside the box, and this was an example of a blind spot. So coming back, what is design thinking? Design thinking is a human-centered approach. It's a future-focused approach. It creates value as well. So what do you mean by human-centered approach? Human-centered approach means there is a greater focus on the person facing the problem more than the problem itself. That is very, very critical. We have to focus on the person facing the problem. It could be a time when there is a water scarcity, when a person is facing a problem. It could be a person who is COVID positive, or it could be a roadside vegetable seller who is affected by the lockdown, or it could be any other problem. I'm just trying to be contextual for the current times with examples here. There has to be more focus on the person facing the problem rather than the problem, more than the problem itself. So this is where you move from being an order taker to an agenda sitter. The very purpose the company, our Polaris software company, was split into two was that we wanted to move from order taking to agenda setting. Services industry is all about order taking. I go to a customer, the customer says, I want this to be done. I take 6 to 8 months or 10 months or 1 year. I finish it. I go and give it. In that period of 1 year, the market has completely changed. The customer gives me more requirements, and these keeps on going. If I was a product company, I would have known what the customer wants well in advance. And then I would have set an agenda saying, sir, this is what you want. This is what your competitor is doing. This is what you have to position yourself in the next couple of months or couple of years. This is the product. This is the approach you need to take. That doesn't mean that I'm dictating, but here I am being a strategic business partner for my customer. You can apply this to yourself as well. As a faculty, are you human centric towards a student? As a faculty, are you human centric towards the management? As a faculty, are you human centric towards the parents of the students as well? Or as a student, are you human centric towards your peers, towards your juniors, towards the alumni, towards the organization that you're getting into? Yeah, in case you have an entrepreneurial mindset, are you able to apply this to your idea, to your stakeholders who are going to embrace that idea? That is very, very critical. So going back to the example of Arvind Eye Care was not market driven. They did not do what the market was demanding them to do. They were market driving. They drove the market. They said business can be done this way as well. So this is a fundamental difference between being an order taker to an agenda setter, and design thinking is a classic tool to help you shift from being an order taker to agenda setter, from being market driven to market driving. So we saw the definition of design thinking, and there is some traditional thinking as well. We can call it as analytical thinking, out of the box thinking. Eh, so many names are there. I'm not against them, but what is the difference between these two? In traditional thinking, the point is, what's the right answer? I need a solution now. Let us solve it first. If you don't have an answer, don't come to me. That's how a typical mindset works. But design thinking is all about what is the right question. Do I know what the exact problem is? Unless I know what the right problem is, I will never have the right solution. I might implement a lot of time, effort, energy into it, but the problem will still continue to remain. Traditional thinking says more talk. Design thinking, as we also already saw, there is more listening to it. Traditional thinking is all about data. No, definitely, we are not against data. Data is important, but data will only tell you there is a problem. Data will not tell you why the problem is there. Design thinking relies on stories. Go back to the example of the farmers who are committing suicide. We know the number of farmers who are committing suicide. We know, the farmers are committing suicide and which region and all those things. We have all the data with us, including the amount of seeds they purchase, including the amount of manure they purchase, fertilizers they purchase, the amount of loan outstanding they have. Everything is fine, but do we know the reason, exact reason for their suicide? Did we talk to them beforehand? Did we talk to their family? That story is very, very important. Unless the story is known, we will not get the insight. If we don't get the insight, we will be solving the wrong problem statement. Traditional thinking relies on event. Design thinking relies on experience. That experience is very, very important, coupled with feelings. When there's a thrill going on, when you watch a movie, when you're a particular place, when you score a good rank, when you score a good mark, when you are called out in a particular assembly, that feeling, or a sad feeling, that is very, very important. Understanding that feeling is very, very important. So on the right hand side is all about human centered. More listening, knowing the story, more feeling, more experience, or understanding the experience, understanding what the right question is all about human centered. Before the COVID situation, towards the last, uh, you know, the third quarter of the financial year, there was a huge talk about, the automotive sector going down. One section of the people said it was all because of GST. One section of the people said it's all was because of Ola and Uber. People are not buying cars. One section of the people said it's a new millennial people who don't want to buy. They were all talking with because of data. Data is true. Cars, people are not buying cars. The cars are not being sold. Because the cars are not being sold, the cars are getting piled up in the storehouse. Because the cars are getting piled up in the storehouse, new cars are being manufactured. No new cars are being manufactured. The vendors and suppliers are also not getting additional orders. It's cascading effect, no doubt about it. But the story behind why this was happening was very, very critical. And unfortunately, neither the government nor the car manufacturer nor the banks who are selling out loans nor the insurance companies who are providing all the insurance, nobody went behind the story as to exact reason of why the cars were not being bought by the consumers. That is absolutely critical, and design thinking enables you towards that. There are three laws of design thinking. The first is less is more. It doesn't mean that just because I have something, I'll have to force something on people. When I have to type out something very urgently, I don't open the word, I open a notepad. It's very simple. That's enough for me to make a note. Just because I have something, just because I love something doesn't mean that I'll have to forcefully thrust it to somebody. As a faculty, as a student, I need to question myself as to, am I giving this just because that other person wants, or am I giving it just because I like it, I know it, I assume that the other person wants it. Less is more. That makes the system, the product, the service more efficient, more fruitful. The throughput is higher, the efficiency is higher, the productivity is higher. So less is more is a critical law of design thinking. The second law that we have is the last 2% is equivalent to 200% in value. The last 2%. Let me give you an example. All hotels are the same. What's the difference between a 3-star hotel and a 5-star hotel? You get the say almost same kind of food. You get almost same kind of room facilities. The infrastructure in the room is almost the same. But why do some hotels charge exorbitantly high as compared to a 3-star hotel? Why compare between a 3-star and a 5-star? Within 5-star hotels itself, why does one person have a preference for a 5-star hotel than another 5-star hotel? That's because of the last 2%. When I go to a particular 5-star hotel and then I'm standing in the queue for check-in, if there is a queue, the guy comes and says, sir, you don't have to be in the queue, just take this key, go and check in, we'll do the check-in formalities later. That is last 2%. I might have ordered a particular dish when I visited the hotel last time, maybe 6 months back or 1 year back, and probably in a different city, say in Mumbai or Bengaluru. And if I go to Chandigarh, that guy will ask me, sir, last time you ordered this in Bengaluru, I'm sure you want to taste that here as well. That is last 2% for you. The last 2% should not be construed as a last mile connectivity. So the last 2% is very, very critical in whatever you do. That gives you the experience. That experience is what makes someone get addicted to the particular product or a service. That's probably the reason I traveled through Indigo. Indigo gives me that kind of experience. And Indigo doesn't have a separate airport. It's the same airport for every airline. But why do I travel through Indigo? Is because of the airport experience. It's about the boarding experience. It's the in-flight experience. It's a baggage collection experience, or anything else for that matter. That extra, or even the food that is being served within the flight, that gives me a last 2%. I'm ready to pay a premium for that. That's the power of last 2%. And that last 2%, believe me, my friends, comes out of unstated requirements. I am not flying in a plane to eat, but if that additional experience is given to me, I will take it. I don't go to eat the same dish in the same hotel in 2 different cities. But if somebody remembers that and offers to me, I will take it. That's the power of last 2%, which is actually a resultant of the unstated requirement. The third law is called the third law of prioritization. It's called the theory of prioritization. Design thinking does not give you a linear growth. Design thinking gives you an exponential growth. That is why we have given prioritization as 10, 100, and 1000. And there is a qualifier as well, which is called the grams. Why a gram? Because that gives you the weight of the idea or the impact of the idea. That is very, very critical and important. So rather than having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the difference here is in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the difference between two numbers is only 1. So my mind becomes slightly confused or biased. Okay, instead of 4, let me give 5 here. Instead of 3, let me give 2. Doesn't make any difference. But here you will be very conscious because each is 10 times the other. 10 into 10 is 100, 100 into 10 is 1000. So even if it's the leader's idea or the boss's idea, if the idea is not so good, I will still give a 100-gram rating to it. If it's a fresher's idea, if the idea is phenomenal, because that guy doesn't come with any baggage and the idea is phenomenal, I will end up rating that idea as a 1000-gram idea. Design thinking gives you an exponential result and not a linear result. So these are the 3 laws of design thinking. You apply this to your problem solving approach, you will give lot of value. It will be a human centric approach. That is why for us, design thinking is a formula. Actually, it's design the thinking first and then think the design. Design the thinking is very, very important. I should know why I am doing this. I should know for whom I am doing this. I should know who my competitors are. I should know, what is the scalability of my product. Unless I understand all this, there is no point in jumping to the design of the product. I'll give you a very, very simple example. Supposing I ask a particular person to design a particular pen. That person will immediately go and then draw a particular pen and then tell me this is a gel pen, sir. This can be in blue or black or green or red or whatever color. It can be kept in a pocket and you can start writing in it. But I just said a pen. That person didn't ask me any further question. Is that pen required by a bureaucrat to sign documents in public forums? Is it required by a scribe to take notes? Is it required by a student to write the examination or something? So unless that gets into the mindset, unless I know who is going to use it, why is it going to use it, or and what context it's going to be used, that is design the thinking. So design the thinking is very, very important. And then thinking the design. So design the thinking is all about stakeholder. If you flip the idea, then you are falling in love with an idea and there could be a potential disaster waiting in pipeline for you. So what is design the thinking? Every human is split into 2 different perspectives. One is knowledge, the other is emotion. So what's a knowledge? I believe most of you here are students and some of you are faculties as well. Everybody would have got a skill, right? When you come out of college, when you came out of college rather, you would have got a skill. The skill is absolutely theoretical knowledge. You have not applied it at all. So you have a certain set of knowledge packets sitting in your brain, but you have not put that into practice. Once you start putting into practice, you become an expert. You gain expertise. When you gain expertise, which means you have a depth of knowledge. That depth of knowledge is very, very important. The deeper the knowledge you have, the people will come and reach out to you for consulting or asking for a solution. So depth of knowledge is very, very important. And there is a particular HBR article which says, unless you put a particular skill for 10,000 hours, you cannot claim yourself to be an expert. But is depth of knowledge alone sufficient? Definitely no. You need perspective. Not only depth, you need from the height as well. When you have perspective, you know within the ecosystem, who is affecting you, who you are affecting. Just visualize the alphabet T. The vertical line in the alphabet T is the expertise. The horizontal line is a perspective. When the horizontal line, you have little bit of knowledge of other related domains as well. You're not an expert in those domains, but you have a good amount of knowledge. That connection of the domains and your expertise gives you an idea. I'll give you a very simple example. Let us take Ola or Uber. They created an app. It's a phenomenal idea. So what is Ola or Uber actually? That app is nothing but Google Maps. And two people log in there, one who has a car, one who needs a car. That's it. So this is a classic coming together or marriage between technology and business. If I had only one of these, this app would not have come. So this idea, if it has to become viral, then there has to be an alignment. Now everybody is aligned to this particular idea. So this is for knowledge. These are the knowledge of the forces of growth or forces of design. This is called SEPIA, SEPIA. Now this is the knowledge aspect of it. Everybody who has got a knowledge has an emotion also attached to themselves. I have a doubt. I have a question. Do I ask that question? Do I question the status quo? Do I allow other people to ask me a question? That is very, very critical. Or do I succumb saying that, I need an approval now, please tell me, sir, should I do it? Is that kind of mentality I have got? And there is a conflict. Conflict is always a difference of opinion. You have a different opinion, I have a different opinion. You come with a different perspective, I come from a different perspective. Your expectation out of this problem statement is different. My expectation out of this problem statement is different. So we need to respect that and then come out with a collaborative solution. That is conflict. Anger. Anger is the tolerance level of what you can actually control. Sometimes anger is the result of helplessness. You are helpless and then you end up shouting at somebody. We need to be very observant of ourselves. Sometimes we need to listen to ourselves as well. And there is fear of going wrong, fear of failure. I have committed something, will I be able to live up to it? Sometimes fear of the unknown. I do not know why I have a particular fear. And lastly, ego. I know it all. And this is slightly dangerous actually. When I think I know everything, I inherently imply that you know nothing. When I say you, the other person knows nothing. This is very, very dangerous. Because there is a lot of assumption or a lot of preconceived notion attached to it. When the whole world is changing, you will be swept across like a tsunami. This is decaf for you. And the last three is vulnerability, the amount of risks that you take. Coming out of the comfort zone. Robin Sharma says the more you come out of the comfort zone, you create more comfort zones. You cannot expand the comfort zone by being within the comfort zone. Appreciation. Appreciation improves trust. When you appreciate somebody, we already have a GST for that. As a school of design thinking, we have GST for that. It has to be genuine, it has to be specific, it has to be timely. And overcoming limiting beliefs. This is what I can do. I cannot do this. I am a male, I am a female, I am bad in maths, I'm not an MBA grad, I cannot speak Hindi, I do not know public speaking. We limit ourselves to certain conditions. There is no limit to our limiting beliefs. So, what is driving your decision? Is it your past? All the baggage that we have been seeing, you're taking risk or not taking risk, your failure, your ability to take, ability to, overcome a particular situation, or your limiting beliefs or your knowledge, is that driving your decision? Is it your past or is it your purpose? I want to achieve this. I know I have failed earlier. That doesn't mean that I can't do. I know I have succeeded earlier, but I am not going to, rest on my earlier laurels. But I have a purpose. I need to achieve that. I'll seek help wherever required. I will upgrade my skill whenever possible, wherever needed. If your purpose is driving you, if your visualized state, your desired state is driving you, that is going to be all the more successful. And that will result in a human-centered approach, future-focused approach. And as an individual, you are your own creator. This image is self-explanatory. My last request to all of you is start writing a journal every day. Take a notebook, write down what your doubts have been. With whom did you have a conflict? It could be an inner conflict as well. With whom did you have a conflict? When did you show anger? When did you express your ego? What kind of fear you had? Just write down. This is for yourself. You are not going to submit it to somebody. You are not going to share it with anybody else. You are not going to, put it up on the website or anywhere. This is absolutely to you. Start writing every day. And believe me, 6 months later or a few days later, when you're going to look back at it, you will see that many of your fears, many of your doubts, many of your, the reasons for anger or your limiting beliefs did not come true. So writing journal is a good way of design the thinking. Unless I design my thinking first, I cannot design the thinking of somebody else. I cannot influence somebody else. Thank you. With this, I complete my presentation. I am open for any questions right now.
Thank you, sir. It was a wonderful and informative session. The comments in the chat box were saying that it was a very useful session. It is out of the box session. And I would like to summarize some of the topics of today's session, sir. First, you told how a group of students shifted their thinking to develop a bag which is used as an incubator, and how they what are the importance of listening, dialogue, and observation, and exactly what is a design we came to know today only. I think so, and why human-centered approach is very important, and there are many things, and less is more, 2% is equal to 200%, and theory of prioritization and vulnerability. It was a very awesome session. I really enjoyed it, sir. And there are many questions in the chat box, but I will address some of them, and the remaining will be mailed to you, sir. The first question is example for stakeholder design from Rakshit Anand.
Example of stakeholder design.
Yeah, yes, sir, exactly.
Uh, Not sure if the question is complete, but if you want me to tell you what a stakeholder is, a stakeholder is somebody who is impacted by whatever you're doing, either positively or negatively. And it's the other way as well, who impacts positively or negatively. For example, when I'm coming up with a particular product, the person who is investing in that particular product, who is a venture capital or who is giving me the seed money, he is a stakeholder. My team member is a stakeholder, right?
Yes,
My
sir.
person who is going to take it to the market is my stakeholder. The person who is going to use my product is a stakeholder, and more importantly, my competitor is also my stakeholder. The government policies under which my product is regulated, that bureaucrat, the MLA, MP, that person is also, though they are also my stakeholder. So I
Okay.
need to be aware of the stakeholder world is very, very important. Yeah, Gauri.
Thank you, sir. And why another question? Why the human-centered thinking is inevitable? By VVS Jayam.
Well, this is definitely inevitable. For example, you take an example of your own home. This is a very simple example, probably crude as well. Supposing you're hungry and your mom serves you a dish. Is it just yet another dish, or is it a dish that a mom thinks that, this is what my son is asking and this is what he likes, so let me make this for him? That is human centered approach. Every mom intuitively does a human centered approach.
Okay,
So
sir.
when you come up with a particular product or a solution, the human centered approach demands that you are giving what the customer wants and not what you think you want the customer wants, right? Gauri.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Thank you, sir. Now I request Miss Cynthia Clarinda, Assistant Professor, Design Thinking Club Faculty Coordinator, JPR Institute of Technology, to give the vote of thanks. Please, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Gauri Puja. Thank you, Ramakrishnan sir, for the wonderful session. It was indeed a great session about Design Thinking Club. And on behalf of JPI Institute of Technology, I would first like to thank our beloved director, sir, Dr. N. Murray Wilson, for this wonderful opportunity to conduct this design thinking webinar. Secondly, we'd like to thank our beloved principal ma'am, Dr. L. M. Merlin Livingston, for her support towards the webinar sessions. And also, I would like to thank Mr. Devanathan, sir, design thinking senior coach of JPI Institute of Technology, for his support over the design thinking club in our college. And thank you, Ms. S. Gauri Puja, third year EC student, design thinker, JIT, for your warm welcome address for the session. And, uh, and also the entire design thinking team. Thank you all once again. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants for joining, and especially for the active participants for joining and being with us throughout the entire session. Hoping to see you all in the upcoming webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The participants are requested to fill the feedback forms, and so the e-certificate will be sent to your mail within 2 days. For more updates of webinar, please subscribe our YouTube channel and follow us on social media. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah, Devnath.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your session, and it's indeed a great session as well. I could able to see a lot of comments in the section, and that are all very good comments. They have been saying that the session is insightful, and some participants have asked for PPTs as well, and we told them that we will be posting through the email address with the certificate, the PDF version of the content what we have delivered today. And
Yeah,
thanks for your time, sir.
no problem. Immediately after this
Thank you so
call,
much,
I
sir.
will share the PPT with you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Many thanks, sir. In spite of your busy schedule, you
No,
have given us the opportunity, and many thanks for your time, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.